And welcome back to another exciting battle. As you can see, we still have Braveheart. This time with the Eastern Romans who figured out, well, the settlement's ours and they claimed it back from the Swaby. But little did they know that I returned with a new army, the Ostrogothic siege force, backed up with an army of Danish warriors that I hired as mercenaries. This army far more suited for the job at hand, armed with a number of elite Ostrogothic pikemen, some Thracian oath-sworn warriors who will tear you limb from limb, and Gothic Palpatina defectors, Romans who decided to defect from Rome. Now you can see these Eastern Romans would not go down without a fight, however. Behind the walls lies legions of Numenor, and pikemen. Eastern Roman pikemen. And barriers. I fucking hate crossbow barriers. It's too effective. This time, the forces had been drawn, and now a battle will be fought. The Eastern Romans, knowing fine well that inside these walls the Ostrogothic troops cannot be allowed. Instead, their best bet is to use their crossbows and traps outside that they conveniently laid. Like, in all seriousness, I was hoping, like, there maybe should have been more communication between me and my ally, who is a friend of Braveheart's, Nicholas King or something. I can't remember your name right now. That we would attack from two sides. Well, the idea was, I was hoping he would get this, but he didn't. I didn't really tell him. So, my bad. I'm never good at communication. So my idea was his force would remain out here, forcing Braveheart to deploy forces here or falling back to the center. Whilst that was happening, I would use my Gothic Palpatina defectors to clean this wall out and slowly advance, using crossbows and archer fire to pin down my enemy. At this level of gameplay, I should have really just bought the elite Gothic archers, but whatever. So now you can see the crossbows are firing madly at these siege towers, hoping to prevent the treacherous these treacherous Romans access to their fair city that they took back from the Swaby. Don't know how this works out as a story, but whatever. You can see, quite desperately, they have massive onagers behind the wall as well, which is quite intimidating. And all across the line, my poor catapults having to maneuver themselves into position. But now is the time to stop being pansies. And now is the time to be men. Because now, my God, these Romans are on the wall. The Eastern Romans promised to pay these fundatory Romans to fight on the border. But once they heard the Ostrogothic army was nearby, these men abandoned the garrison to join up with the Ostrogoths and take revenge on these Eastern Romans for abusing them, which was actually quite true. It was more Western Roman there who abused these Fentatori just by taking warriors and providing them with very little in return. And when you have a system like that, it usually ends up in somebody going to kill the other. God, that barrier burn. So now you can see the fighting has begun. The elite Numenor pushing themselves into combat against these treacherous garrison Romans from the border forts. And in the meantime, more Fendator, more defectors moving along the wall, cleaning it up for the main force of Danes to arrive. Obviously, this is going to be an even tougher fight, and you can tell it lasts for pretty long, so I'm going to put it on fast forward. You can see this fight is not going in my favor. Like, we still haven't killed a single Numenor yet. They've killed hundreds of us. More spiders. Anyway, yeah, I have to clean up spiders. For those of you of the faint heart, I do not suggest it. But now you can see the Romans just using the streets. It's really another one of these types of battles. The closeness of Ravenna makes this a very difficult battle. The armored Sedicari, which are basically Venatores, just pinning down these defectors who are really my only line-holding swordsmen. The Thracians do a ton of damage, but that's it. Now you can see I'm trying to lure up the Numenor onto a field of battle that I like. This wall here is perfect. The Numenor cannot. You can see it doesn't look like he's pushing nothing, but he's pushing a large onager instead. These Numenor, some of the fiercest Romans, elite guard of the Eastern Empire's jewels. And now you can see them just tearing into these traitors of the Empire. More and more war darts. Well, I don't remember their names, but I call them war darts because they are essentially a dart. The reason why the Romans changed up from the traditional pila, which is a javelin, was because the darts were lighter and easier to use. You could carry 6 darts to 2 pila. Mathematically, you'll be doing a lot more damage, but they lost that ability of making the enemy lose the shield. And you can see these poor defectors just getting hammered by all the crossbow fire. Braveheart certainly knows a thing or two about this crossbow. And he knows fine well. Like my ally, I did expect him to assault another part of the wall. Maybe use his large onagers to attack and cause breaches on the ground floor, or take out towers, but I didn't communicate, so my bad.
The men are running, cowards!
Anyway, you can just see the Numenor just being hammered by the... Yeah, there's a breach. These Numenor are just standing there like, what the hell? Some of them just thinking, have I done right? And before falling and dying. Pretty dramatic. But you can tell, I don't know if this was on purpose or not, but he's using these large onager to barricade the way in. God damn it, that will be annoying. So now you can see the only unit that's left in the city are these treacherous Romans, and from the eyes of a Visigothic, or an Ostrogothic general, because Visigoths and Ostrogoths are 2 different tribes because they split up for some reason. They used to be called the Goths, but stuff happened. Basically, what happened was pretty simple. They got into a civil war. Huns showed up and they both departed. One went to Africa and one went to Spain. I think the Visigoths went to Spain and Africa was the Ostrogoths. Might be the other way. But anyway, back to the main point at hand. Now that we have a breach into the city, my pikemen immediately move up, always ignoring the traps, hoping to establish a bridgehead. The Eastern Roman pikemen, the elite barstarii, crossbowmen, men who know to point and shoot in a single direction, because it does take a qualified job to do that. Now my pikemen, these elite Ostrogothic pikemen, being taught to fight in formation against the Visigothic cavalry. I mean, like, both factions have pretty damn good cavalry. Don't get me wrong. But the Ostrogoths have good bloody pikemen. Now you can see all these elite Roman barstarii moving up into position, ready to hammer into the reinforcements. But I fought ahead. Using my Thracian Oathsworn, these men will scale the walls. Hopefully. Any moment now. Think they're going into the walls. You going up the siege tower? Yep. These men know one job. They know how to kill. And without the crossbow's firepower, they have nothing to fear. True, the Romans have swords and daggers, but now they'll have to face Ostrogothic steel in the form of Thracians. Many Thracian tribes actually joined the Ostrogoths. Why? Because they didn't want to be servants to the Huns. And plus it was quite profitable, raiding Eastern Rome and all that, as they went. So you can just see these, damn it, my war dogs activated. These Ostrogoth, these Thracian Oathsworn just plowing, quite literally just plowing their way through. Over here I decided it wasn't a brilliant skirmish fight, but thematical nonetheless, cinematical even. Just the volleys of arrows hitting off the wall, but I mean, like, yeah, they're doing a fair amount of damage, but I'm only killing one Roman with some shots. Sometimes I'll get more, like 2, but at this rate, it's just not worth it. Meanwhile, my men are single-handedly clearing up this wall. Even the king, or the warlord of this Ostrogothic army, coming in and just chopping his way to victory. Understanding that the Romans, where are their forces? They're here. They want to get into a battle of attrition, but if there's one thing I know from Braveheart, he doesn't want to micro. And more Vikings are now joining the fray. Some Ostrogothic pikemen being put up into this position, trying to breach this wall. But it's not a good engagement. Soon enough, though, Royal Huscarls from the Jutes, yes, Jutes, join us in an attempt to steal the glory from the Ostrogoths. But little do they know the Ostrogoths already claimed the glory today, led by the warlord. I'm basically using him as shield, so my Thracian Oathsworn don't get annihilated by towers. Just hammering their way through the elite Baristariae. And look at this, the defenses are wide open. These Baristariae unable to get clean shots off due to the fact that their comrades are fighting on the wall. Heck, I even think I send a unit in here to make sure. Poor Onager guy. Like, I didn't notice this, but these two were left. And just as all these Huscarls and elite Ostrogothic units run by, the pike fighting down here is not going in my men's favor. Like, even if the Thracian Oathsworn's ferocious charge bonus and all that kicks in, it's just, they have the better positioning. We don't. And you can see my Thracian Oathsworn are pretty dumb, but they are nonetheless fierce in close quarters. These Huscarls, on the other hand, they are sort of like Thracians. I didn't know towers killed you whilst you were inside. For some bizarre reason, the tower went down and killed a good lot of my men, but now you can see the Thracian Oathsworn just chilling. I don't go for the town center. I only steal bits. And obviously, as a result, he's moved all his forces here once again. And you can tell casualties are heavy on both sides. We still outnumber him by 2-to-1 odds, though. Nearly 2-to-1, anyway. I was thinking maybe I should go around and help out my comrades, which I do go and do, but for some reason, I don't know what's stopping me. Maybe it's because I know they have a crossbow unit up there. I was hoping my warlord could handle them, but obviously not. So my Thracians are here, and I'm just thinking, should I? Like, it's not a good fight. It's certainly not a good fight, considering now there's pikemen there. What we should do instead, I do tell my ally to climb up this wall and start causing havoc. The Huscarls being the perfect assault units for this. Their heavy armor combined with their axe will be the perfect counter to the Numenor. Plus, a lot of these Huscarls are elite. You gotta remember that. So you can see the Eastern Romans cowardly hiding behind their walls of pikes. Just sort of like, oh, look at us, we're so powerful with our pikes, you can't touch us. Whilst my Thracians really getting hand-to-hand combat with the flax. A vicious weapon. It's basically like a scythe. It will get stuck into you and give you a nice, nasty cut. Took them a while to die. But you see the brave Ostrogothic warriors just refusing. But my Ostrogoths are not only brave, they're clever. By charging directly into the pikes. I'm kidding now. I'm using the javelins from the next unit up here just to saturate. I love that word. That's my new word. Saturate. Saturate these elite Roman pikemen, lessening their formation as they go. But also at the same time, I realize the strategic value in this wall. The Huscarls, they can't get anywhere. Why can't they? Too much fire from the crossbows. There's still tons of Romans in reserve with pikemen support and these large onagers. So what do you have to do in these situations? You have to be smart. And smart is not a word that you normally would associate with me. If you know me, my title may be false. But now I've made the assumption that this wall was secure enough for my longbows to kick in. And look at this. Where's the Roman shields? Where are Rome's shields? So I order my archers to take the heaviest shots and start hammering in to these Mentatoriae. which are sort of like civilian militia pikemen, pretty high ranking as well. Although their pikes are brilliant, they're also well armored. So slingers won't do the trick. Instead, you actually need to bring along archers. But now you can see that these guys know they're in threat, and he brings up a fresh unit, and my longbowmen just abusing, well, longbow, well, Germanic archer, just long bows, because there's women in this unit as well. You can see Germans actually, these are sort of militia units, but they're very effective. I'm just ordering my archers just to pick and volley at these guys, using the last of my perforations here, my Thracian commandos, I like to call them. I love these guys. Their flax is too powerful. You can see I don't want to waste them on pikes. I mean, like, especially if these pikes are gonna die. Obviously, the Vikings take advantage of this and think that's a brilliant idea. And immediately, Huskarls find the breach from the weakened Numenor. And now, more and more chosen warriors, the elite of the Viking force, or rather than the elite Huskarls, these heavily armored Vikings matching the Numenor, both in skill and in armor. These men are the perfect match. And now the Viking short sword will be put to advantage against the longer sword of the Numenor. It's actually quite an interesting thing. Wait. They're using long swords. Better not be using. Oh, wait. I think they're. Yep, they're both using long swords. Damn it. So the Huskarls now finding their way around the pikes, along with a hell of a lot of Ostrogothic elite pikemen, finding their way in. But now my archers find a position to help their comrades and provide covering fire. At last, the Roman stranglehold has been broken. What remains of Rome's legion are in the elite Barastarian pike and a few pikemen, whilst the more veteran Romans are forced to defend this wall to their last. And you can see more and more streams of warriors just waiting outside. My men have done the heavy lifting in this battle. And I wanted to do the heavy lifting, because that is where you can say to yourself as a true king or strategist that I done the heavy lifting. May not be the most cunning of plans, but there is no cunning plan in fighting in choke points like this. If I was here, I would mine underneath the walls and slowly break down. Use spies to sneak inside and ruin the defenders' foods or weapons. Anything just to weaken the defenders. And you can understand that these Montemor are now defeated, not by strength of arms, but by cleverly placed arrows to the head. And now my elite Ostrogoth wait, more than back. Now I'm sending in more and more elite units, whilst my ally sends chosen warriors up to the wall unhindered. You can tell that these chosen warriors did put up one hell of a heroic fight though, and they are still giving a bloody good fight. But now my longbows find in a position just to abuse their range. These two still going. I mean, like, their arrows just finding their marks behind them. The Romans just unable to defend, because if they turn around, their wall will be weakened, wide open to an assault by the elite Ostrogothic pikemen. The Ostrogothic pikemen were made to prevent the Hun cavalry. It actually worked out pretty well until the Huns brought in steppe archers, which they were all archers to begin with, so. I mean, like, these pikemen also served better use whilst they fought against the Romans. In the Munditorei, because, well, I don't know their exact history, the Ostrogoths. I have to look it up again. I'll research that once more. But now the Numenor are broken, with fresh Viking troops and Ostrogothic troops streaming from the gap. Hope is lost. But yet, these chosen warriors, chosen by their lord to help the Ostrogoths in this attack and promise loot, have been given the order to hold this wall until the last, even if it means dying. I mean, like, the dead don't get loot, so. Problem is, that tower's still going berserk back there. But now, the Vikings have been given a clear route into the city. What defends the city center? are only a few pikemen and the cowardly general himself, whilst the remaining crossbows help filter in fire, holding the gateway from any Ostrogothic attempts to take it, setting alight their own siege equipment as well. But now the battle is over and done with. Spears can be put down as the Ostrogoths proudly march over.
The men are losing
I should have
hope.
put more longbowmen on the wall, maybe, so I could just volley fire
The men
in.
are broken and running for their lives.
Don't mind that. Now you can see what remains of my Thracian commandos just taking fire. Didn't really notice it. A lot of my longbowmen still have a good amount of range, though. What I would do in this situation, I would just pull back and try and defend these two choke points, or even defend one of them. But now the Viking Raider cavalry can go in. They may not be terribly great cavalry,
The men
but
are
they're
broken and are
raiders.
fleeing.
They're pretty good raiders. They're fast, light, and dangerous, and should never be underestimated for hammer and anvil. But what stands against them is the elite Magister Militant, a very dangerous Roman cavalry unit. Even Western Roman cavalry looks good when these guys are around. And you know how much I hate
The
Western
men
Roman
flee
cavalry.
the field
I never
of
seem to get them to work.
This is a shameful display.
Like, it's either the Skull of Palpatine are just terrible at their job, or not. But now you can see that these elite Ostrogothic pikemen are trying to avenge the Vikings who swore oaths of loyalty to the Ostrogoths in return for raiding them. But now the city has been overwhelmed. Ostrogothic commandos in the form of Thracian Oathsworn streaming in to capture the remaining towers. Meanwhile, while Viking troops loot and burn as promised under Nez King. And now these pikemen, the Munditorie, giving up their pikes for some bizarre... Oh, never mind, they didn't give up their pikes. To fight the chosen warriors and Ostrogothic backup pikes. Obviously, the chosen warriors will win this engagement because the pikes are disorganized and there's not enough of them. Backed up by my own elite pikemen, I doubt they would have won. But now I have longbows in, expecting a huge defense from Braveheart, only to find the city center empty. This is a sad sight. I was thinking, well, he's obviously got a good amount of his force left, but
Enemy
no.
units have rallied and
All he had
returned to the
left were a
battle.
few crossbows. He could have moved them to this wall and maybe prevented us, but not at this point. Despite the efforts of a few remaining Romans, the city center falls to the Vikings instead of the Ostrogoths. I mean, like, the Ostrogoths do eventually show up, but they were pretty busy with the looting themselves. I even move a few archers in on the wall just to secure the place, to make sure everything's okay. But Braveheart, understanding that he's lost now. There's simply too many Vikings and Ostrogoths in the city. The Ostrogothic warriors coming up here, bashing down buildings to remind the Vikings that this is Ostrogoth land. You may loot it, but do not damage the buildings. Take goods, but do not. Even coming in to save the Vikings. When you get outflanked by pikes, you know you've done something wrong. But these Magister Militant will not go down without a fight. Poured in by arrow fire from my men. Pikes. And sadly enough, he doesn't leave, but he's still there. We just captured the city center because of the number of units. So don't forget to comment, subscribe, and all that jazz for more exciting siege battles. And I'll see you next time. Oh, my manners. Sorry. So there's the other guy's name, Nez King. I think Kunks. I don't know. There's our armies. You can see the Vikings scored relatively a good amount of kills. Yeah. So don't forget to comment, subscribe, and all that jazz, and I'll see you next time.